Well, hello everybody and welcome to the BCR Academy of Success. This is Anthony McGloin on a pre-recorded version for this week. Today's session, due for the 22nd of May, is the day that I'm flying over to America to live and work over there. It won't change anything that we're doing for the future, because the 4:30 time on a Tuesday will just mean that it's an 8:30 in the morning on Tuesdays for me. So while I'm flying, I wanted to make certain that we didn't miss out a week. So I've got this particular webinar recorded. Please take the time to focus on it and work on it just like you do all the other ones. And let's get started, because what I wanted to do was to look at a really important part of the sales process. In the last couple of weeks, the last few weeks, we've looked at how understanding somebody's personality profile is very important using DISC. And of course using your own DISC to understand your typical strengths and weaknesses when dealing with people. Then we looked at an overview of the sales process. Well, today what I wanted to do was to look at how to conduct yourself in the sales meeting. Now, although you're not selling anything, people will see that you're in a sales meeting. So the same rules apply, offering your service, the BCR service, as it does to any other type of sales. Remember, the definition of sales, the best definition of sales, is professionally helping somebody else use your services to buy what you have. So let's just look at the top 10 tips for client meetings. This also applies to introducers as well as clients. So let's look at the first one. Positioning is all important. What do I mean by positioning? This is about building the relationship before the meeting. Most of you are very comfortable in the relationship side of selling, and so this is very natural to you. Positioning is all about helping the person get comfortable with you, to agree the journey together in advance. So sort of ways you can introduce the positioning is to just introduce it with what we normally do, and then tell them what you normally do, or to ask their permission to get engaged with them. Would it be okay if I explained how to get the most out of our meeting today? Or would it be okay if I outlined how to get the most out of our meeting next Thursday? See, positioning is done before you do the activity. You position yourself so that the other person and you are working together, already knowing what your objectives are. Every single meeting, it's vital that you know what your desired outcome is, and also that the person that you're meeting has a desired outcome, and that you know what that is. That way you can work towards having a relationship agreement by knowing exactly what each other's looking out for. So that's what positioning is all about. That's number one. Next one, as we've already mentioned, is to know their DISC, or if you've got a preferred alternative for understanding people, become the master of that. Master the behavior model. This really is vital. It's how you will develop rapport and develop that relationship. If somebody's a D, they just want the headline points. If somebody's an I, they'll want you to chat and ask about their family. If they're an S, they're going to be looking for you to be supportive and cooperative and caring. And if they're a C, they're going to want all the detail. So knowing the DISC is very important too. Point 3 is very simple, but it's about leaving your home on time, arriving at the destination on time, starting on time. You see, first impressions really do count, and unless you have the best way to start and you know how to start your meeting, you're always going to be guessing what the best way is. So find out how you want to start, learn it. Learn the first 30 seconds of your introduction, so it's an absolute natural way to seem and appear professional right at the outset. So there are the first three points. Moving on to number 4, all about preparation. Remember, when you're meeting someone, it's all about them. Have you ever seen salespeople who say, well, I'll wing it, or I'll do it. I don't need to prepare because it all comes naturally to me. What nonsense. Amateurs wing it. Professionals find out about the other person in advance, prepare how to build that rapport and relationship with them, and prepare how to reach their desired outcome. How can you prepare for that if you don't already know it? So prepare, prepare, prepare. They say that practice makes perfect, but actually that's not true. Perfect practice makes perfect. So find out everything you can and prepare for it in advance. Moving on to 5, if you've got an agreed on a desired outcome, then it makes absolute sense to agree an agenda in advance. What do they want to get out of it? What do you want to get out of it? How long have you got for the meeting? Have you ever gone to a meeting expecting it to be an hour and find out that you've only got 20 minutes? So agree an agenda. If possible, send them an agenda or talk to them over the phone and say, let me make certain that I can get everything ready. What are the other points that you'd like to be covering in our meeting today? And you probably heard that last question, an open question. What are the points you'd like to cover for today? Questions really are the answers, and that's number 6 of the top 10 tips. You've got 2 ears and 1 mouth, and it's vital that you listen more than you talk. Look for the opportunities by asking questions. Remember that telling isn't selling, and remember that one of the best books about sales is called Questions Are the Answers, and it's by Alan Pease, P-E-A-S-E. I mentioned that a few times if you haven't already got that. Very simple, short book, a vital part of your sales armory. So let's move on to the final 4 of the top 10 tips for client meetings. The next one probably is the most important, and it's the one that perhaps you'll feel most awkward about. It's about holding the other side accountable and holding yourself accountable for any of the points made in that meeting. So making notes, confirming the action points during the meetings. If there's an agreement to do something, get an agreement to do it by a certain time. And at the end, just run through it. You're holding the meeting, it's your meeting. So at the end, just say, so would it be okay if I just outline the action points we've got so we can make certain that we're absolutely agreed about what each of us are doing? And then go through it and agree with them. Check that if they're going to come back to you this week, check what day it is. Get their agreement. You're not dictating what you're saying here. You're asking them if they're going to come back to you with a name and address. Just ask them, when can I expect that to happen? And when they say Wednesday, then you can say, that's great. I'll contact them on Thursday. So what time do you expect to get back to me? Excellent, 3 o'clock. And if for some reason I don't hear from you from 3 o'clock, could I give you a call at 3:30 just so I can continue the process by contacting that person on Thursday? You see, the point is holding people accountable is key. Otherwise, as you know all too well, it's easy to forget, or it's easy for another priority to happen. So accountability is all important. Then, of course, the 7 touches, knowing that on average people say yes, they buy from you, or they buy you on the 7th touch. Now, if they're much more decision focused, they may go earlier. If they're a C in the disc, they may need more than 7 touches. Whether they're clients or introducers, use this as an average, because if you try to get them to say yes before the 7th touch, you may scare them off. And if it's much later than that, you may bore them and they'll go somewhere else. 9th of the top 10 tips, recommendations. You see, assuming mutual credibility is key. You're giving your time and they're giving their time to meet. So you've already qualified them to be worth meeting. And so have they done the same for you. So it makes sense that if you're beginning to respect someone and understand and believe their credibility, that you're going to expect for them to be able to help you and for you to help them. So suggest personal recommendations. Here's a great example. You could use a phrase like, most of my business, in fact 80% of my business here at BCR comes from recommendations. So would it be okay if I could ask you for maybe in the next month just to be thinking about the 4 most important people that you can think of that would benefit from me going and speaking to them and helping them look at their bills? That's all it takes. A very simple, easy question, asking them to think about and come back to you with those names. Finally, action points in the end of the meeting. Know how to end your meeting, just like the beginning of the meeting. You know, the bookends of success are how you start and how you finish. So very important that you know how to finish your meeting. Make a great lasting impression, just like you've made a great initial impression. And make certain that those action points and timescales are confirmed and ready for both of you to follow up. And then just stick to those key points. So there's the top 10 tips of client meetings. If you believe that these are the right ones for you, just go back and give yourself you can use the slide bar here in order to just go back and review a couple of these points. And I'll just go back for you now very briefly. What I suggest is that you write each of these down and give yourself a score of 0 to 10. 10 being the best you can be, 0 being the worst you can be. See exactly where you are now on all these points about positioning, about knowing and mastering your disc, about your time management, about preparation beforehand, about agreeing an agenda in advance, how good your question skills are, how good you are at holding yourself and the other person accountable, how many touches you have in your system, how confident you are in asking recommendations, and how disciplined you are in ending the meeting with specific action points. So for each of those, give yourself a score of 0 to 10, and then this week just be thinking of the ways that you can improve whatever that score is, just by 1 point, just by 10%, by doing something specific to improve those points. Now, of course, we're not in a webinar environment today, so it's difficult to discuss, but why not write down any questions that you have? If you like any of these points, give the others a call, have a chat about this, but most importantly, give yourself specific action points to be moving on with. Similarly today, more difficult to review, but you see, the week's review and your focus sheet actually isn't for me, and it isn't for anybody else. It's for you. It's for you to get into the habit of reviewing your week with an absolute focus on the things that are most important. Now, I've taken out just for this week of the points that show how many meetings and how many sales, etc. you're getting, how many introducers, because you can do that for yourself. But the same principle applies here. Just take a moment to confirm to yourself how well you stuck to the goals that you set this week, the specific goals that you set for this week. What did you learn from working on your goals? Looking at your achievements this week. You know, if you've done something really good and you don't recognize it, your mind thinks it's not important. So get into the habit even of doing something silly, like taking your right hand, putting it over your left shoulder, and giving yourself a pat on the back when you do something well. And what about the challenges? What about the things that set you back? You see, writing them down and putting them on paper actually takes a lot of their power away, and it allows you to look at them objectively. So whatever that challenge was, just think for a moment, what can you do to protect yourself against that challenge next week? Then looking at the money side, what were you doing this week? Specific things that increased cash flow, profit, new business, or if it didn't actually increase it, it took you significantly towards future increase in money. And what was the actual value of new business this week? How much did you win this week? Whether it came in this week or for a future. Make a note of that. And then, of course, finally, just those couple of points that are so important. How well did you stick to your timetable? And how well did you stick to your goals? Take a few moments now and every week to really get into the habit of doing that. And then take a moment now to take your number one. What was the number one thing you got from this session? From those top 10 tips of client meetings? From what happened during your week? From things that actually started thinking about over the last few minutes? And when you've got that number one, what are you going to do as a result? What are you going to do about having emphasized that point, having learnt the point, or having realized the point? Because if it's important, it really is the number one thing you've got, then it makes sense to do something about it. If it was a challenge, to overcome it somehow. If it was a great point you've been doing, to make certain you repeat it. So finally, for this session, as always, it's all about your goals. So what are your goals for this week? What are the things that you're going to be really focusing on about all the other things that can happen in your business? All the pebbles and the sand, what are the rocks that you're going to put in place first and foremost, so that regardless of what else happens in the business, you are going to achieve those goals? Take a moment now on your focus sheet to write down those points. As the webinar closes, make a point of having 5 or 10 minutes to say, what are the really important things? And once you've done that, write it down and then make certain you plan it. So, I hope you've got some client meetings in the next 7 days. Take those top 10 tips in client meetings and just see how much you can improve this time and next time and the time after. You see, all you've got to do is improve by such a small percent each time, and in a 2 or 3 weeks time you're going to be significantly better. It's that whole principle of the 0.47% improvement. At 211 degrees Fahrenheit, water is water. At 212 degrees Fahrenheit, water becomes steam. Yet it's only a change of 0.47%. But it changes everything. And it can change everything for you. Make certain that you're looking at the big things to change, but also every day looking for those little small changes that are going to make all the difference. So I do hope that's been very useful for you. Client meetings and introducer meetings are things that you're all keen to develop and improve upon. Let's make your performance even better with them. For the moment, for the next 7 days, I'm going to hope that you can take some of those tips and put them into your business. I'm going to be back live with you next week. Looking forward to that. It'll be in the morning for me, it'll be in the afternoon for you. So normal login to the GoToWebinar, you'll get the reminder, and I'll look forward to speaking to you. And I promise to keep an English accent, but I look forward to speaking to you from a few thousand miles away on Tuesday next week. So that will be on the 29th. And in the meantime, enjoy your week, have a successful week, and very best of luck with those client meetings. Speak to you soon. Bye for now.